In 2013, I remember walking along a pristine beach in the Dominican Republic after taking a break from doing some volunteer work in a batey. I was talking to a friend about an article that Ilia Dalia, who now teaches at Villanova University, wrote. So imagine walking in the shade of palm trees along the beach. We were discussing the article, Love at the Heart of the Universe, in which Ilia Dalia introduces the idea that our role is to be whole makers. Now that's whole makers, WHOLEMAKERS. Whole makers of love in a world of change. She suggests that as we give birth to God in our own lives, we become midwives of divinity in this evolving cosmos. Whether we're men or women, we can be midwives. So on this third Sunday of our new liturgical year, let's use the lens of whole makers of love in a world of change to break open today's message. Point one, this is not the black and white religion many of us were exposed to in elementary school. Just as we've outgrown many of the clothes we wore when we were 10, experience has hopefully invited us to question and evolve much of what we believe. Point two, let's face it, the bubble is broken. If these last 10 months haven't brought us as individuals and as a world community to a heightened level of awareness of our own interdependence, we just aren't awake. Each of us is facing into Christmas this year without so many of the touch points that make the season special. Parties, visiting, feasts, shopping, and gifting. Point three, here it comes, the good news. Because in our confusion, disappointment, anxiety, pain, death, Christ is God with us as Emmanuel in our vulnerability. And that, my friends, is cause for joy, even as we grieve what will not be this year. Being whole makers of love in a world of change assumes we are active, engaged, and responsive, rather than static, passive, and lethargic. Be open to alternative ways of celebrating Christmas. In our tradition, I typically host our extended family on Christmas Day. This year, we will not be together, other than Stan, Annie, and I. So on a recent Zoom call, we agreed that as family, rather than exchanging gifts with each other, we would each donate to a charity this year. I think we have an opportunity to really consider what has this year made us more attuned to. Perhaps in this season when we sing, O come, Emmanuel, specifically the phrase that mourns in lonely exile here. Perhaps our understanding of exile, just based on what we have been unable to do, may lead us to a deeper reflection. Despite the images that surround us in most of our churches, Jesus was not white, nor were his parents. They were Galilean with dark skin, most likely illiterate. Being more conscious of skin color may influence how we interpret scripture, engage with others, and consume news. Today's prayers and readings invite God to be with us and challenge us to bind the wounds of the brokenhearted, proclaim liberty to captives, and release the prisoners. I love the line that Diane proclaimed from the poem Advent. To get this is to be startled by the coming of God in our lives. Wow, startled. The point is that each of us is called to live the way that Jesus lived and actively engage in the repair and recreation of our world, here and now. Love, freedom, truth, wholeness create the standard. And when we disagree or conflict with a law, work to change the law. We can also be equally startled by intentional actions that block one's full humanity. Last week, many of us in the community received Maria Marlowe's message on behalf of Brandon Bernard, who was executed last Thursday. Some of us reached out to President Trump and Attorney General Barr to request that Bernard's sentence be commuted. However, he was executed. Pope Francis has reaffirmed the church's commitment to calling for the abolition of the death penalty around the world, calling it an inhumane form of punishment. Even the US Conference of Catholic Bishops opposes these executions. Here's the backstory for those of you who might not be aware. For the past 50 years, only 3 people were executed by the federal government in the United States. In July, after a break of 17 years, the US resumed federal executions. Between July and September, 7 men were executed by lethal injection. Congress authorized the use of the death penalty to bring justice to victims of horrific crimes, murder, torture, and rape, where the most vulnerable, children and elderly, were victimized. Yet what I find unconscionable was the government's decision to move forward with 6 additional federal executions that were fast-tracked and scheduled between November 19th, after our election, and Inauguration Day in mid-January. In our country, the last time a lame duck federal execution occurred was 131 years ago, in 1889. No question, each of the people convicted did terrible things. Yet study after study concludes the case selection process favors minority defendants and the economically insecure. Appeals have not been granted for intellectual disability or mental illness. So of the scheduled 6 executions between November and January, 5 are Black men and 1 is a white woman. Immoral and dehumanizing. Especially this year, as we've dealt with the additional pandemic-related deaths of 1.6 million people globally and 300,000 in the United States. The best I've read on this topic is the December 11th article that Boston College ethicist James Keenan, SJ, and attorney William Montrose Jr. wrote for National Catholic Reporter, entitled "Catholics' Involvement in Death Penalty Killing Spree is Scandalous." Keenan and Montrose go as far as to suggest that this Advent we are witnessing a modern day lynching. They suggest that the people and the details behind the convictions are worth revisiting. Prominent Catholic Americans, from our Attorney General Bill Barr to 5 Supreme Court justices, have had key roles in orchestrating these executions. The question that continues to haunt me echoes the Holly Near song, "Foolish Notion." These lyrics haunt me. Why do we kill people who are killing people to show that killing people is wrong? What a foolish notion. Even when it feels like the legislative and judicial systems are broken, our responsibility remains to combat injustice, to seek wholeness, to choose to act from a place of love, and to be light in the midst of darkness. We are midway through Advent. The choice is yours. Opportunities abound. And let's face it, it's hard to be a whole maker. And like Jesus, in the process of bringing peace into the world, we can get bruised. Here's a question I invite you to reflect on this week. How might you be a whole maker of love in a world of change in 2021? God bless you all.